Hello and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. I'm your host, Scott Orr, where we talk about the art and culture of running an independent record label, and where on this show we talk with a lot of inspiring record labels and we learn from them and on how that they can inspire us in our own record label. And so that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. And today is a very big episode. We're talking about the 4 attributes of a great record label. And I'm excited to dive into these things. And of course, these aren't the only things that make a record label. And we're not talking about success. We're not talking about financial success, although some of these attributes will possibly lead into that. But we're talking about being an admired record label, an empathetic record label, a record label that makes an impact, and that is one of these inspiring record labels where we have on the show. And so I'm excited to dive into this topic. I hope you stay with me. There's a lot of things we're going to cover today, and I think you're going to find it very helpful, if anything, just encouraging and inspiring. If you haven't in a while, I suggest you go to our website, otherrecordlabels.com. I'm very proud of the resources and the courses and the tools and the downloads and the interviews that we have up there. And it's something I work on every single day. And so if you haven't been in a while, please come on over and check it out, otherrecordlabels.com. Before we dive into today's topic, I just want to emphasize that there are so many things, and this is what we talk about on the show, there are so many things that make up a great record label. And what does great even mean? I don't know, and that's up to you to decide. But there are 4 overarching topics that I've pulled from my conversations with people via email, and you guys email me like every day. It's so great. I love responding to labels of all sizes from all over the world. And you can email me anytime you want, podcast@otherrecordlabels.com. I read them and I get back to you eventually. But the thing that what's so amazing is that there are some like common denominators that I've discovered, and I'm not an expert, you know that, but these are some things that I've discovered from our great labels that we've had on this show that we've interviewed, and I don't even know the number, 70, 75, maybe more than that, maybe closer to 100, who knows? But these are some of the things that I've witnessed in my conversations with them, in following them on Twitter, on Instagram, admiring them, big labels that we haven't on the show that won't answer my emails, even some of those. And then some of the conversations that I've been having with some of you who aren't even yet started your own label. And so these are some of the things that I have found, and I'm excited to share them with you today. Number 1, and there's 4. Number 1 is to be artist focused. And a lot of labels claim to be artist focused, and I think that's incredible. And we're going to kind of expand on that a little bit. What does that mean? Because it's kind of a generic thing, and it's almost like a buzz phrase that people use a lot. So what does it mean to be artist focused? Some of the things I see people do and being considerate of is thinking about artists' mental health. That's a huge thing for creatives and for artists, and for a record label to be conscious of not just the creativity and the music and the finances and the royalties and the content that comes from an artist, but also to be thinking about them as an individual and to be nurturing their mental health. And some record labels that we've had on the show actually have like health benefits for their artists, which is incredible, and put a huge effort into what's the word I'm looking for? Just taking care of their artists, really. And so the other thing that I see too with great labels that are artist focused is there are labels that are generous. They're generous not just financially, but they're generous with their resources. They're generous with their time. That's what I love to see. I hope to do that with my artists if I ever can, and it's something I always want to do better at, and it's something that I absolutely admire about the record labels that I talk to. For sometimes it's it's just about making them comfortable, making them happy and healthy, and there are things like I've seen record labels who opt to not have a recording contract because it makes the artist feel more comfortable if there isn't an official document. That's sweet. On the other hand, I've seen the opposite, where artists feel more comfortable if there's a lawyer involved and there's a really ironclad contract, and that labels are generous to do what makes their artists feel most comfortable. I absolutely love that, and I think that's something that we should keep in mind. And the other thing when it comes to a label being an artist-focused label is that labels need to facilitate the art. They need to facilitate the creative process. So does that mean giving the artist an advance so that they can work a part-time job, so they can focus on their record? Does that mean providing them with recording equipment, loaning them stuff? Does that mean setting them up with other songwriters or musicians or producers? Does that mean giving them money towards recording their project? Maybe just helping babysit or dog sit so they can work on a record? You as a record label who claims to be artist focused needs to find ways that you can facilitate the art making process, the creative process. It's incredible when record labels find ways to do this. And I think it has an incredible impact on not just the artist, but on your record label as well. Number two, and it's kind of the opposite of number one, and that is to be fan focused. And I've always said this on the show of how important it is for record labels to be this conduit, this bridge between the artist and the fan, and to represent both the fan and to represent the artist, and to ensure that creativity is respected and monetized and just made in the first place, but then also to be on the fan side of things and to inform the artists and let them know what the fans want and to advocate on behalf of the fan. And so just like we say a record label should be artist focused, we also want to talk about how a record label can be fan focused. And, I just want to kind of step back for a second here, because today's episode there are so many things that go into making a record label and making a record label healthy and successful and taking care of the people who run the record labels. And we're not covering everything today, of course, but I think it's important sometimes to kind of just zoom out and put a name to some of the things that we do, and to kind of give a why behind some of the tasks that we do on a regular, weekly, daily basis. So a record label that is fan-focused is someone who I think, and this is just my opinion, but I like to see record labels that serve first and then charge later. You know what I mean? It's thinking, let's make sure we get the music into the artist's hands as quickly and as easily and without as many gatekeepers or moments of inequality or access. Just get music to the fans as quickly as possible, then we'll worry about the financials later. How you do this is completely up to you. But I just want people to remember that when we're trying to advocate for the fans, and that when we trying to get our music and our artists' music into the ears of fans, that we want to make sure we eliminate as many barriers as possible. And one of the ways we can do that is to not always be thinking about the monetization of our music, but just getting it out there as quickly as possible. We see record labels on Twitter do this all the time by giving away download codes, and that's such a beautiful thing. And I was motivated by one of our labels on the show for my Bandcamp page to make all of the albums or most of the albums free, so that they could go there and download the digital music for free. And if they're really motivated and if they really enjoy the music, they'll come by and buy the physical thing or go to a show or buy some merch. And so that's one of the ways that we can serve first and charge later. Another thing we can do to be fan focused is what I talked about at the beginning, is acting as a bridge to the artist, listening to fans, being a spokesperson for fans. And one of the things that I like to do as with the artists that I work with is provoking the artist. I love that word provoke, because it doesn't mean what we think it means. We think it's like a bad thing. But to me, it means to encourage and stimulate and to excite and inspire an artist to make more things, to release their demos, to do a house show and record it live off the floor, and then to give that away for free, to give the whole album away for free as a digital download, to give away your test pressings or to sell your test pressings, or to make an album of demos and sell that. Whatever it is, I love inspiring an artist to be more prolific, less precious with their material, as I've talked about in the past, and just provoke them on behalf of the fan, right? Because when we're fans of a band, we want everything. We want their set lists after the show. We want their commentary on their albums. We want them to write an essay on the meaning behind a song or a lyric. We want to see the lyrics. We want to print them off. We want to hear the demos, the iPhone demos, the live recordings, the bootlegs, all of that stuff. When you're like a diehard fan of an artist, you just want everything. And so record labels should be fan focused in that they're a spokesperson, they're an advocate, in communicating with the artists on the fans' behalf. Moving on. Number 3 is to be authentic. Give your label a face. I think this is one of the things that I love about record labels. And one of the things I find kind of confusing about record labels that don't do this is they don't give their label a face. We don't know who's behind the Twitter account. It's just a name. I love when we actually know who the owner is. In fact, my label's been going now for like 12 years, and it's kind of a smaller community. And people, when they email the info email address, or when they're emailing about shipping or they've lost a shipment, usually the email comes in, it says, "Hi, Scott," because even though it's like info at, they address me because they know it's just me, and they know it's like a one-person operation. And I kind of like that, that they know that when I tweet something from my label account, they know it's coming from me. It actually says that in my bio. And I think that's really important and a good step towards being authentic, and a great way that fans can connect with your record label by being authentic, by giving your record label a face and a name. And maybe that's not one person. Maybe that's a group of people. Maybe your accounts are run by 2 or 3 people that your label is owned by. Whatever that means, I think it's really valuable when you can be more personable online. The other thing that we can do to be authentic as a record label is to not copy other labels. Now, this whole show, by the way, is called Other Record Labels, and it's about learning from record labels and sort of stealing what they do. But really, it's about the ethos, about learning from our peers and working together as a community. But it's not great whenever you see someone launch a Patreon, or you see someone do a certain type of Black Friday sale and you just copy it verbatim. That's not being authentic. And that's probably not going to work for you because it works for them, it works for their demo, and it's just not being creative. I heard this great quote that competition is the opposite of creativity. Creativity is when you create something brand new. But when we try to compete or we copy someone, that's not creative at all. And so don't copy people, not only because it's sort of lame, but it's just really not healthy. We have a whole episode about this, so I won't get into it. But it is one of the tent poles of being authentic. And the other thing, the final thing I'll say about being authentic is to promote community over content. And this is hard to do because we often think about our releases as being the most important thing. But what really is the most important thing as a record label is the community of artists and the community of fans, and even the community of all the other record labels that you interact with. And so it's really important for you to find ways where online you can promote the community more so than you're promoting the content. I don't know what that looks like, and that could be something different for everyone. But I think that's really important to remember, is that the community of music lovers is more important than any singular release. And we're always trying to push a new tape, a new vinyl, a new single that's coming out, a new track, whatever, some new merch. And there's a place for that. I'm not saying we don't do that, but make sure you're putting a good emphasis on promoting the community of your label. And we're going to get into that in a second, over the actual content. The final thing, and this is something that I'm really excited about, and I talk with people about when I do these coaching calls with people, or when people email me asking for advice, and we talk about it a lot on the show, is being unique. Number 4 attribute of a great record label is to be unique. Find a unique offering, something about your record label that's really unique. Is it that you are a record store that's now starting a record label? Is it that you're a record label who's opening a record store? Is it that you are the only record label in your city? Is it that you are a Indian record label that is doing indie rock and trying to curb that stereotype of Bollywood music in India? That's an actual conversation I had with someone last week. Find something that truly makes you unique. We hear about people who work at pressing plants who start their own record label. We hear about mix engineers and recording studios that start their own label. It's really important. You can't just start a record label, release music, and then expect people to pay attention to you. You really have to do something unique. And I don't know what that is. I'm going to give you a couple examples, but I think it's really important to come out and have some sort of unique offering. So a music fan can immediately link to you and say, you know what? I believe in that message. I like that idea. Is this an algorithm, a computer algorithm that is released, making music without a human involved, that's being pressed a cassette? Okay, great. I'm interested. What is that? Whatever it is that is you, it has to be unique. And one of the ways that we can do that, and one of the ways that I see our labels doing that, is having a cause, having a passion, having a why behind what you're doing. Now, it can't just be being artist focused, or it can't be just saying that we're trying to give a voice to our artists, because we all are trying to do that. We need to be more specific for that. There's a great quote I love that says, "Stand for something or you stand for nothing." And so we don't want people to look at our record labels and to think that we stand for nothing, that we're not that there's nothing really special or unique for us. We want people to attach themselves to our record labels because they believe in the same things that we believe in. One of the ways we can do that is by having a mutual enemy that you share with your artists and your fans and yourself and your team. Now, I don't mean like an actual person. Now, you can make me your mutual enemy if that helps, whatever. But what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a mutual enemy is maybe it's racism, maybe it's inequality, maybe it's a format. Maybe you really don't like digital, or you don't like the streaming platforms. Maybe it's corporate America. Maybe it's just the fact that you don't like that this genre is being forgotten and is overlooked. Maybe that is the mutual enemy. The other way to look at it is, in a more positive light, is to have a mutual passion, something that is unique to your record label, and that is a mission that fans can say, you know what, I actually truly believe in this. There was a record label from South Korea that I was talking to that wanted to overcome that image of K-pop. Like I mentioned, there's a label from India who wanted to overcome that image of Bollywood. And this is something that they're really passionate about. And I was so excited when I heard them talk about that, because I thought that is your unique offering. That is something that a lot of people would cling on to and say, I really believe in that. That's really cool. And of course, a lot of the labels that we have are involved with charities or are nonprofit organizations, or they have some sort of mission statement. And I think that's really important for your fans to say, hey, I'm supporting these artists. I'm supporting this label, not just because the music is great, not just because they developed an awesome community around this music, but because we have a mutual passion. We are like-minded and we share the same values, the same worldview, whatever that is. So it's very important that as you're developing a record label, or if you already have a record label, that you find a way to make it unique. When I was getting started with my label, at the time, I tried to put emphasis on the fact that we were a Canadian label. We were kind of going on this Canadiana, which is like Americana, but the Canadian sound. And we had a little elk as our logo and everything, and we really pushed that. And that worked really well for us. And so, it can be something as simple as your geographic location. It could be something as specific as your really narrow genre, or whatever micro niche genre, or it can be something as specific as your formats that you release on, or something bigger picture like your values and your ethics. I hope that you found these helpful. Be artist focused, number 1. Be fan focused, number 2. Be authentic, number 3. And number 4, be unique. I hope that you found this helpful. Again, these are just some of the things that I've picked up on from the conversations I've had with labels. There are so many ways to be a great record label, and I'm learning things every single day from my conversations. And I hear of a new thing that a brand new label who's only been around for a couple of weeks is starting to do, and it blows my mind. And then I hear of something I've never thought about from a label that's been around for 25 years, and it totally blows my mind. So there are millions of ways to be a great label, but I wanted to kind of zoom out and to kind of create these 4 buckets that we can look at and say, what are we doing to make sure that we're artist focused, that we're fan focused, that we're authentic, and that we're unique. Please go to otherrecordlabels.com. Please like and subscribe and give a star rating and all those things to this show. Would really appreciate it.